birds singing in the dead of night.
My father was born on January 28, 1965, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to two loving parents and an expectant sister. As you can see, even from an early age, my father learned to love that finger.
For this moment to arise.
For the first 3 years of his life, they lived in Argentina, my grandfather working as a typographer and my grandmother working at a telephone company.
All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of a dark black night.
They lived a happy enough life, but in search of something more, they decided to chase the American dream and moved to sunny Culver City, California.
You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray, I've been for a walk on a winter's day.
Here my father lived a normal childhood, complete with birthdays,
If I was in LA,
trips to Disneyland,
on such a winter's day. Stopped into a church, I passed along the way.
Universal Studios,
Well, I got down on my knees, and I pretended to pray.
and Magic Mountain.
You know the preacher like the cold, he knows I'm gonna stay.
But mostly, there were family parties. Nearly every weekend of my father's childhood was spent at some park or the house of some relative, surrounded by family and friends. And they knew how to have a good time. This was a tradition that carried on his whole life. As a child, my father had boundless energy and a sense of adventure and wonder that he retained even in his adulthood. Much to the discontent of my grandmother, my father could never sit still for a picture or make a straight face. This was a trait he carried with him for his entire life. And one he passed on to me. In 1977, the family had to return to Argentina to care for my father's grandmother. They were forced to leave the US and everything they had here behind. Things were difficult in Argentina for them. My father longed to return to the States, which had become home to him. After a few years, they decided it was time to return, so my father and grandfather headed stateside, but first needed to re-establish a life here in America for my aunt and grandmother to return to. In his teens, my father was forced to forego the typical teenage experience, and instead went to work with his father. He once told me he never regretted these years, because they gave him the strong work ethic he possessed for the rest of his life. Eventually, my grandmother and aunt did return to the States, and life regained a sense of normalcy. My father got to chase girls and get in trouble. He and his best friend Phil spent countless hours riding around on bikes and skateboards, and eventually driving in their cars. After completing high school, my father decided to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. When I asked him what compelled him to do so, he replied, "This country gave so much to my family. I wanted to do what I could to give back." So my fresh-faced 18-year-old father shipped off to boot camp. It was there he earned the nickname Private Stopwatch, because his watch had a stopwatch feature, and the drill instructor relied on him to keep times of runs in various drills. Though boot camp was hard, it was the kind of challenge and adventure my father thrived on. And in March 1984, my father became Private Claude A. Guiral, USMC. Shortly before his first deployment, my father received the hardest news of his life. My grandfather had been diagnosed with cancer. He passed away in 1984. My father was just 19 years old. Suddenly, he was the man of the family, with a mother and sister to provide and look out for. Needless to say, my father accepted this great responsibility and never failed them.
Tu silueta va caminando con el alma triste y dormida. Ya la aurora no es nada nuevo a tus ojos grandes y a tu frente. Ya el cielo y sus estrellas se quedaron mudos.
When my father returned to the Marine Corps, he resumed his training in earnest. For a brief period, he carried a squad automatic weapon, or SAW. He learned to fire mortars and repel from helicopters. But most importantly, he learned about brotherhood and service to others. These were values he continued to carry throughout his life and career. Eventually, due to his proficiency with a rifle, he was sent to sniper school. There, he honed his marksmanship skills and joined the ranks of one of the toughest, most deadly groups in the entire armed services, the Marine Corps Scout Snipers. With his training complete, he was ready to be deployed abroad. Over the course of his service, my dad traveled all over Southeast Asia. His exploits took him from Thailand to Australia, and even to Okinawa and Iwo Jima. Eventually, the Marine Corps took him to the Philippines. There, a 17-year-old girl who worked in a store near the Marines' base would capture his heart. After several trips to this store, and the question, "Where can I find?" was sheepishly asked many times, my father worked up the courage to ask her out on a date. It didn't take long for a relationship to blossom. But eventually my father had to leave my mother. He was shipping out. He promised to come back for her, and come back he did. In 1988, he returned to the Philippines and brought my mother back home with him. They were wed on March 4th, 1989.
And I dedicate my life to you always.
A love like yours is rare. It must have been sent from up above, and I know you'll stay this way for always. And we
Coincidentally, roughly 9 months later, in November of 1989, I was born. Juggling the newfound responsibilities of parenthood and the demanding nature of his job could be too much for some, but not my father. He excelled at both.
Staring at me.
After receiving his honorable discharge from the Marine Corps, my father applied to the LAPD. When I was young, he told me that he wanted specifically to be in the LAPD because they were the best department there is, and he knew that it would be the most challenging. So in late 1988, my father went through the police academy.
Do you, don't you want me to love you? I'm coming down fast when I'm miles above you. Tell me, come on, tell me the answer. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Now helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter.
My parents' first home was a small apartment in Culver City, just above my grandmother and aunt's apartment. It was here they brought their first baby home, and here they continued the tradition of family gatherings.
But my heart's of gold. I had to run away high, so I wouldn't come home low. Just when things went right, it doesn't mean they were always wrong.
Though now an adult, here my father was still the silly, energetic goofball that he was in his youth.
Gosh, I can't believe how.
Coolo, Dudo.
And now the great Carmack.
And now I will reveal this hermetically sealed envelope, never opened before by human hands, which has been kept in a pickle jar on Grandma Rosa's doorstep since 12 noon today. May your daughter have a love affair with the Marine Corps.
Whoa! Dude.
This is a card from Phil.
Bill?
Happy anniversary. To two very special people. Remember, wherever you go, that's where you'll be. Just think, babe, when we're 40 years old looking back at this tape, we're gonna look at ourselves and we're gonna say, what an idiot.
At work, my father still retained his silliness.
We're all gonna be Cobra.
How do you feel? That's good, that's good. That's good, that's a break. Oh, what's going on in there?
Though whenever duty called, my father answered unfalteringly. Early in his career, my father volunteered for the CRASH unit, or Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. While with CRASH, later renamed SPEW, my father worked tirelessly and selflessly to keep the streets safe and to give criminals their due. In an LA Times article from 1993, my father was quoted as saying, "I'm kind of hard-charging. If I get paid to do something, I want to do it. I applied to the force to put criminals where they belong." And that's just what he did. Over the course of his career with LAPD, my father worked at Central Division, West LA, Hollywood, and finally North Hollywood, before ending up at Training Division, where he finished his career. Over those years, my father developed lasting bonds of friendship and brotherhood, as well as accomplishing many feats and helping and inspiring a great deal of people. In 1992, my parents learned that we would be welcoming a new member of our budding family, and in 1993, we welcomed my sister to this world. As proud as my father was of having a son, he was smitten instantly by his new daughter. Despite the enormous amount of himself he poured into his work, he gave even more to his family. He gave us all he had.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
Oh my goodness, Jesse's driving. Wow! Look at this. We're gonna beat him. We're gonna beat him. Wow! Jesse's going fast.
Are you excited to go to Legoland?
It's taken an hour, 2 hours to get here, but when we finally get there, oh, Nelly!
Okay, ready? Jessica already opened hers.
She did.
Okay, ready? Come, you guys have to do it.
Okay.
Show it.
Wow.
Okay, I'm opening it. Come on.
Wait. What is that, Jess? Let me see.
Okay, ready?
Wow.
Okay, ready?
Uh-oh. I got a feeling he knew what that was.
Oh my God, no.
This is from Jess.
Merry Christmas, Daddy.
All right.
Let me see, hold it up.
I got you something even better
Oh,
than that.
yeah.
I got you something even better than that, Dad. You're
Wow. Thank you, babe.
so
Give me a kiss. Wow. Everybody say bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye from Buffalo Central. From
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye
Everybody
from
say
Buffalo Central.
bye. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, bye.
Over time, my father watched his children grow into teens, and then adults. The guidance and knowledge he imparted on us helped shape us into the people we've become. My father once admitted to me that he regretted the time he spent at work and felt that he wasn't around enough while we were growing up. But I had to disagree. He was always there when it counted, even if he was on 2 hours of sleep. He always showed up to my baseball games.
Deep breath, something to hit, bud.
He was always there on Christmas morning,
Morning.
Morning.
or birthdays or graduations. He even coached my sister's soccer team.
Hey, listen. They don't have nothing up front. Nothing. Defense, get offline. Okay? A couple of times it went through, that ball's coming high, you're letting it go over your head, and now it's a race to the ball.
I've never once doubted that our family was the most important thing in the world to my father. And for his whole life, everything he did, and everything he was for us. My whole life I've strived to make my parents proud, as has my sister. And even though as teens, both my sister and I contributed to many a gray hair on my father's head, I know he was damn proud of us. When my father got sick, it struck a horrible blow to our entire family. After being diagnosed, he vowed to fight with everything he had. It's a testament to his strength and will that he was able to fight for as long as he did. I'm thankful that we got to spend nearly 2 years with him after his diagnosis. It was during this period that I feel I really got to know my father. And I think it was during this time that he got to see just how much we all meant to each other. It's strange to think that he's gone, but I like to think that he's not really gone. He's with me. And my sister. My mother and grandmother and aunt. He's with all of us, and we've got to carry him with us forever. Though his body is gone, the lessons he taught us, the jokes he told, the memories he helped to craft, those still linger. And through those, he lives on.
So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil? Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade?